Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Kamla Ganesh, formerly from the Department of Sociology, University of Mumbai, currently Senior Fellow of the Indian Council of Social Science Research. This module deals with E Daispora or the digital diaspora. In today's context, diasporas are no longer rigidly anchored in the physical space of the hostlands and the imagined space of the homeland. Rather, they relate to both hostlands and homelands and also to co-ethnics in other countries all over the world through digital communication. The revolution in information and communication technology has enabled co-ethnics, national groups and also other groups who have common interests and no common ethnicity to be able to meet and communicate and carry on their action without actual physical meetings. This has led to the formation of what are now known as digital diasporas or e-diasporas, and the phenomenon is closely connected to the increasing trend of transnationalism. This module aims to show the potential of e-diasporas and the differences between e-diasporas and physical diasporas, and map the areas in which e-diasporas are active, including the sphere of religious groups, government and right-wing fundamentalist movements, as also in intra-community debates and dissent. Contemporary globalization has revolutionized the very idea of time and space. Globalization itself is not new. In different forms, the process has been there for centuries, from trade and barter exchange to free flow of capital and culture beyond the boundaries of the nation-state spanning the globe. Under the conditions of contemporary globalization, diasporas have a distinct edge in the promotion of their culture and economy, engaging with their communities dispersed worldwide. With the revolutionary advancement in technology of information, communication and travel during the 1980s and 1990s, there has been a steep increase in the global circulation of people, capital, technology, media and ideologies as sketched in terms of scapes by Appadurai. Cohen is tempted to use the word diasporization as a concept akin to globalization. An increasing number of immigrants retain connections to the homeland and to each other via telecommunication networks. Thus, long-distance communication across national boundaries has become a significant part of the construction of a transnational identity that transcends the spatial anchoring of diaspora. The interactive community is neither fixed in space nor bound to a set of definable attributes, but instead it is a fluid field of practices and meanings, negotiating, bringing in new spaces of articulation and new relational solidarities. If we take boundary as a dividing line, then cyberspace has been dissolving divisions. Today, transnational networking among the Indian diaspora is based on multiple identities of religion, region, caste and so on. The process of globalization has also furthered these networks, taking them to the realm of cyberspace, creating virtual communities or online communities and identities. The emergence of such networking and community sentiments cutting across several countries is appropriately described as transnationalism. Digital technologies are replacing place in its usual sense and digitalizing place into virtual spaces of diverse practices. The geographic disconnection from the homeland, the historic rupture with the homeland's nationalism, and the cultural confusion that migration produces can be counteracted as the digital diaspora reconnects virtually with the original national place. There have always been the connecting of diasporas all over the world based on one's religious identity, ethnicity, nationality, regions, etc. But the coming of information communication technology or ICT has broadened the scope of communication and intensity and speed of connection. Though ICT may be viewed as a space and a platform to the muted voices to express their ideas, it may also be seen as a space where hegemonic discourses are shared. What is e-diaspora? Digital diaspora or e-diaspora is a migrant community whose interactions with other community members spread out internationally are electronically mediated via new technologies of communication. The formation of digital diasporas has taken place in tandem with the mounting access to online public content and mobile phones. There has been an immense growth of social networking platforms over the last 10 years, which has enabled a different kind of diasporic connectivity, one that is happening primarily via the internet. There is now a voluminous body of research which examines the relationship between diaspora, migration and technology, which advocates that internet is an important enabler of developing and sustaining the diasporic public sphere. Reingold has asserted that the virtual world has been appropriate for connecting diasporas at both the local and global levels. In fact, it proffers a platform to share ideas, debate the issues and mobilize opinion. All of this fosters digital diasporas. It has been documented that diasporas often use Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn to build communities in the digital space which support integration in host countries. Participating in these online spaces often helps in filling the social void in the real lived lives of the users. Research suggests that association-specific online sites and blogs have been tools for community building and communication, dissemination information relative to the given diasporic population in both host and home countries. There are grassroots organizations that happen to exist in only cyberspaces with the sole aim of networking with the diasporic population scattered around the globe. These organizations frequently petition for funds to buttress socioeconomic development in their homelands. Some of these organizations that are ideologically in opposition to the homeland government may propagate electronically in international networks their own political agendas that enable movements against the government. Internet undoubtedly nurtures solidarity among people who are geographically scattered from their home countries. Many studies have documented online practices that have influenced diasporic subjectivity in significant ways. For instance, many people from the diasporic communities feel that internet offers a safe space where they can negotiate their sense of self and express their hybrid identities to articulate what it means to be a member of a particular diaspora. The virtual world thus plays its part in the representation of diasporic life. Now we come to the question of how E Daisporas differ from physical diasporas. An E Daispora is a migrant collective that organizes itself on the internet. Its practices involve interactions which are improved by digital exchange. It is a heterogeneous and dispersed collective whose existence is determined by a common direction which is constantly renegotiated as the collective evolves. It does not necessarily include face-to-face physical interaction. Over the last few years, Government of India has improved its public diplomacy efforts and made an effort to reach out to its diasporas. This is also connected to India's perception of the significance of the diasporas in gratifying its foreign policy objectives. Since independence, India has made enormous investment in resources to buttress its interests through high-level dialogues and cultural exchanges with other countries. But it started showing interest in its diasporas only from the 1990s. India's transformed interest in its diaspora and consideration to public diplomacy has perhaps been ignited by how China has been applying its soft power to wield its global influence. Soft power derives its potency chiefly from three resources: culture, political values and foreign policies. India has an enormous amount of soft power, including its diverse and democratic traditions. However, this has not been utilized fully to progress its foreign policy objectives. Nevertheless, it is now endeavoring to use its digital technology and soft power in a more favorable fashion in order to engage with its domestic and foreign publics. Scholars identify three characteristics that are trademarks of India's new public diplomacy. India is vigorously looking for new audiences, counting domestic populations in India and the diaspora in the West. India wants to bring in transparency to its foreign policy making process. And third, it wants to focus its labors on new media sources relative to traditional media. Towards these objectives, there are myriad initiatives that India undertook in the public diplomacy showground as such. In 2010, India projected its soft power by organizing Indian film festivals in several countries. The Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs had an informative and well-crafted website to publicize its initiatives. India opened its Indian Diplomacy Twitter account in July 2010. India's public diplomacy efforts focus on both foreign publics and domestic publics. One recent example is that Twitter was used by Indian officials in order to engage with the 2011 Libyan crisis and facilitate evacuation of hundreds of marooned Indians in the city of Misrata, Libya. A suggestion by Cowan and Arsenault was made that public diplomacy practitioners must understand public diplomacy in 3 layers. 1. Monologue or unidirectional informational flow. 2. Dialogue or flow of information in multiple directions. And 3. Collaboration based on cooperation and partnership with targeted audiences. Each layer has its pluses and practitioners should know which to apply for productive outcomes. For example, an effective speech for monologue could invoke intense emotions. A thoughtful dialogue could lead to mutual understanding, and a productive collaboration could lead to lasting trust. Many studies have been done to understand how India and other countries are using digital media to connect with their diasporas as part of their public diplomatic efforts. Murthy's study in 2013 reveals that most countries have relied on monologue in order to improve their image or the credibility of messages. Many countries still rely on read-only websites and other similar digital media resources for their public diplomacy efforts. Ma has demonstrated how Chinese government has immensely stretched out its virtual territory, which include launching websites focusing on diasporas. Monologues can be enhanced if the public diplomacy messages are in sync with a country's foreign policy so that they are credible. It has been noted that government is risking alienating the very foreign publics they focus on if their digital postings are devoid of clear attribution. There is a vast and diverse digital universe that links Indian diasporas with each other and with India. As a community, Indians have been quick and efficient in taking to digital communication, and of course, the IT revolution itself has several key contributors from the Indian diasporic communities. Reinforcing the diasporic orientation towards ethnic and cultural identity making are numerous websites, chat groups, and blogs on topics ranging from cookery and cuisine to tourism in India to matrimonial alliances. Religious organizations and religio-political organizations are active in disseminating their standpoints to their followers. Government of India itself, in pursuance of its own pro-diaspora policy from the 1990s, has exploited digital technology to push its nationalist agenda forward. Let us now look at a few examples. Let us start with digital communication from religious and spiritual organizations. The existence of different forms of communication and technology have given rise to religious transnationalism, including the flow of ideologies, mass movements, access to information, etc., using various online sites as a means of spreading religious ideas. A number of New Age Hindu sects, for example, have followers and devotees who are Indians living in India and also the Indian diaspora, and furthermore, they also include non-Indians. The headquarters are usually in India, and there are often branches or chapters in major metropolitan centers of Europe, North America, and elsewhere, wherever there is a big group of devotees. Many of these organizations are wealthy and also have talented followers who can manage their online activities efficiently. For keeping the scattered devotees bonded together and their devotion and loyalty to the sect intact, the internet is used extensively as a tool for communication. Digital Hindu nationalism provides us with a particularly relevant case study to examine the relationship between politicization of religion, migration, technology, and transnationalism. It demonstrates the trajectory of a mobile Hindu nationalist elite and offers a startling example of how an offline network is translated online. Furthermore, it enables a better insight into understanding a global movement's universalist ambitions. Thervat has asserted that the content analysis of pro-Hindutva websites is an effective method to assess variations in discursive strategies of online Hindutva. She has given a brief preliminary history of the main pro-Hindutva outfits after analyzing 228 websites. Firstly, about Hindu nationalist groups now based in the USA and how Hindutva has become an offshore ideology. Secondly, the controversial and illegal nature of pro-Hindutva activities have led to strategies of online prudence. The concept of Hindutva comes with a specific political agenda that aims to create a Hindu nation state. The main defender of Hindutva ideology is the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, which was founded in 1925 in Maharashtra. This organization functions via a heavy network of about 50,000 local shakhas or branches where physical and ideological training is offered to over 2.5 million activists by the cadres. The RSS has become the chief of a centralized structure with plentiful specialized offshoots and sections. The whole structure is called collectively as the Sangh Parivar. The effort at transnationalizing these networks at first occurred in an unplanned way through individual initiatives and pre-existing family networks. However, it has been documented by Jafarlot and Terwat that from the 1970s to the 2010s, the Sangh Parivar initiated a number of branches abroad and transplanted its dense structure in every country where its existence was recognized. Swiftly, the World Wide Web ascended to prominence as an outreach medium towards Hindus settled in the West and particularly in North America. As Helen says, the mobile Hindu elite who are receptive to Hindutva are also well acquainted with the ICT and web. Pro-Hindutva activists were prevalent on Usenet forums as early as 1985. The Sangh Parivar since then has considered using new methods to exploit the web. In 1996, the RSS began the Global Hindu Electronic Network (GHEN) through the Hindu Students' Council. 1999 saw the launch of Cyber Shakhas online. The first one was inaugurated in September 1999 from New Delhi. Later on, Skype Shakhas and E-Shakhas were formed. RSS understood rapidly the potential of the web so that it could bind together a heterogeneous and geographically spread out community and alter it into an imagined community. All this happened along with the waning of shakhas in physical form in India. RSS realized that web offered a chief tool for their goals. In order to explicate the structural differences between online and offline nationalist networks, a corpus of 147 websites has been compiled since July 2011, starting from a few core RSS websites that were trawled 4 times till a satisfactory, if not absolutely exhaustive list of pro-Hindutva groups was obtained. About 80 additional websites stand out as the periphery of the corpus. They are frontier sites, that is, they share a close proximity to the pro-Hindutva groups but do not belong to the pro-Hindutva universe. They have common concerns, dialogues, and are hence in the same virtual neighborhoods, to use Arjun Appadurei's expression. In Terwat's study, we can see that the different graphs substantiate the central points. Firstly, the Sangh Parivar, online as well as offline, is the core of pro-Hindutva movement. Secondly, the epicenter of Hindu nationalist forces is in the diaspora, and more specifically in USA. One can hence observe the process of transnationalism of a nationalist movement whose political project is intertwined with a specific territory. On the internet spaces, the articulation of a territorial project and of a universalistic ambition is being talked about. Thus, it is observed that Sangh Parivar is the epicenter of Hindutva ideology, both in India and abroad. From the 1990s, when the Government of India took a proactive position to woo its diasporas for national development, all subsequent governments followed up with various initiatives which have been detailed in other modules of this course. The current government has continued with this strategy, extensively utilizing digital communication for its purpose. Diaspora organizations have also made themselves prominent in cyberspace. A prominent example of a community which uses online spaces as a platform for sharing of ideas and discussions regarding issues internal to the community are the Parsis, a minuscule community whose dwindling numbers spell a grave danger to the existence of the community. Arguably, Parsis in India are themselves a diaspora, having migrated in the 8th century AD from Iran to Gujarat. From the British period onwards, as businessmen and supporters of the colonial empire, they migrated out of India to various parts of the globe. As an educated community, Parsis have been vociferous about matters pertaining to the community through discussions in the English and Gujarati press. The internal groupings that divide the community on these issues are broadly Bombay Parsis, Parsis in other cities and towns in India, and Parsis in the diaspora. One of the most fiercely debated issues among them are whether the spouse and children of a Parsi married to a non-Parsi can be accepted within the religion. The other is whether conversion to Zoroastrianism should be allowed. The first is a significant issue only within India. The latter is taken up more frontally in the diaspora, where the view is generally more liberal and accepting of change. In India, there are two streams, the liberals and the conservatives. Although the influential Bombay Parsis have representatives from both streams, it can broadly be said that Parsis who do not live in Mumbai are more open to change than the Bombay Parsis. Mumbai is the stronghold of the community where its trusts and charities are located, and the influential Bombay Parsi Panchayat functions from. The diaspora community is a leading player in the debate. There are also Zoroastrians from Iran who have out-migrated and formed their own diaspora. In the diaspora, Iranian Zoroastrians and Indian Parsis interact and influence each other's views. So we can see that this small but significant community is dispersed in various parts of the globe and yet is in constant communication regarding community issues. There are numerous websites and chat groups that represent various stakeholders and diverse views which proffer a forum for discussion. Ganesh in her article tracks the digital and offline debates and their interlinkages through the various formal and informal fora in which they are expressed. She makes a mention of how diaspora in terms of social relations generally locates itself in the triadic relationship of diasporic community, host and home. On a more general note, the transnational community has penetrated the dispute as a significant player but has not displaced locality. Others have raised the same issue, that while global trends are often reinscribed in the local contexts, localities in turn are producing differentiated responses, their own forms of organization and their specific brands of racism. According to Brinkerhoff, the internet pretty much performs the same function as a physical group, that is, it provides a connection to the country of origin, eases security concerns, improves a member's quality of life, creates communities that represent hybrid identities, and encourages solidarity among members. She also articulates how the digital networks help in increasing social capital, the bonding of which gives the diasporic community its collective identity. The networks thus formed can release personal disorders and psychic crisis. Their identity is mobilized to enhance the quality of life of the fellow diasporians in the host country and fellow citizens in the home countries. For example, the IIT Roorkee Alumni Association of North America is working with IIT Roorkee in India to help students explore and fine-tune their entrepreneurial instincts by pitching business ideas for startups to a panel of senior venture capitalists and entrepreneurs for mentorship and incubation using the digital medium. She also talks about how digital diasporas, by the creation of cyber communities, counter the marginalization conducive to violence, using examples of Somali Net and Afghanistan Online. These cyber communities potentially prevent conflict through opportunities to express feelings. They help bond with others online, as the difficulty of communication in the physical world is simplified in the cyber world, where a certain degree of anonymity is permitted to an individual. Brinkerhoff elaborates on how these digital diasporas help negotiate hybrid identity and contribute to homeland societies. Hence, it can be noted from myriad studies that sites on religion, history, culture, jobs, matrimonial sites not merely help diasporics to cope, but are also actually producing and reproducing a culture of nationalism and a shared identity. In conclusion, it can be seen that e-diasporas or digital diasporas are here to stay. They have enormous potential to bring about communication between individuals, communities, state actors and non-state actors. It all depends on how they are used.